She was just a maid, assigned to the vampire king's dying son, the cursed prince everyone feared. While brushing his hair, her fingers found something sharp beneath his scalp. Metallic thorns embedded in his skin, glowing with dark magic. What she didn't know, she was the only person in the kingdom who could remove them, and it might kill them both. The scream tore through Bloodmoor Castle like a blade through silk. Leora's hands froze mid-scrub, the stone floor beneath her knees still wet with soap water. Around her, the other servants dropped their brushes and rags, faces draining of colour. "It's the prince," whispered old martyr, crossing herself with trembling fingers. "May the gods have mercy." Another scream followed, raw animal desperate. It didn't sound like a 14-year-old boy. It sounded like something dying. Leora had only been working at the castle for 3 days, but she'd already learned one rule. When Prince Aidan screamed, everyone ran away from him, not toward him. Everyone except his father. Heavy boots thundered down the corridor above. King Draven's voice boomed through the castle, sharp with barely controlled rage. "Where are the physicians? Get them to the infirmary now." Leora stood slowly, her heart hammering. She'd never seen the prince. Few servants had. He was kept isolated in the East Tower, attended only by the bravest or most desperate staff. 3 attendants had quit this month alone. One had simply vanished. "Don't even think about it," Marta hissed, grabbing Leora's wrist. "That boy is cursed. Death follows him like a shadow." But Leora had grown up around curses. Her village had burned because of one. She'd survived when others hadn't. Maybe that made her foolish, or maybe it made her the only person in this castle who understood that curses didn't make someone a monster. They just made them suffer. She pulled free from Marta's grip and ran. The East Tower was forbidden to lower servants, but chaos had turned the castle inside out. Guards rushed past her without a second glance. She climbed the spiral stairs, following the screams that grew louder with each step until she reached a set of iron doors thrown wide open. Inside, hell had broken loose. 2 physicians in blood-stained robes stumbled past her, their eyes wild. "He's possessed," one shouted. "No medicine can help him." The royal infirmary was a large chamber of stone and shadow, lit by dozens of candles that cast dancing shapes on the walls. In the center, on a bed draped in black silk, Prince Aidan convulsed. King Draven held his son's shoulders, trying to keep him from thrashing off the bed. The vampire king was massive, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, with eyes like burning coal. But right now, those eyes held something Leora never expected to see in a creature rumored to have slaughtered entire armies. "Terror, hold him!" Draven roared at the remaining physician, an elderly man whose hands shook so badly he could barely hold his instruments. Aidan's back arched impossibly high. Blood dripped from his nose, his ears trailing down his too pale neck. His fingers clawed at his own scalp, tearing through his long black hair with such violence that his nails left red streaks across his skin. "Make it stop!" Aidan sobbed between screams. "Please, father, make it stop!" His words dissolved into another shriek that seemed to vibrate in Leora's chest. The elderly physician backed away. "Your Majesty, I cannot. This is beyond my knowledge. The pain source isn't in his body. It's something else. Then find someone who can help him." Draven's fangs extended, his vampire nature surfacing in his desperation. The physician fled. Leora found herself stepping forward. Her body moved before her mind could catch up, before fear could root her in place. "Your Majesty." Draven's head snapped toward her, eyes blazing red. "Who are you?" "Leora, sire, I'm one of the new maids." Her voice somehow stayed steady. "Let me try." "Try what?" Draven's laugh was bitter, broken. "Do you have magic? Can you cure curses? Can you do what 20 physicians and 3 witches have failed to do?" Leora looked at Aidan, really looked at him. His face was twisted in agony. Yes, but beneath the pain, he was just a boy, thin, fragile, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of years without proper sleep. His fingers were still buried in his hair, scratching, digging, as if trying to rip something out of his own skull. That's when she noticed it, the way he clawed at the same spots, the way his fingers seemed to catch on something beneath the hair, the way certain areas of his scalp appeared slightly raised uneven. "I can try to ease his pain," Leora said quietly, "if you'll allow me." Draven stared at her for a long moment. Another scream from Aidan made the decision for him. "Do whatever you can," the king's voice cracked. "Please!" Leora moved to the bedside. This close, she could see that Aidan's eyes were squeezed shut, tears streaming down his face. His whole body trembled. "My prince," she whispered gently, taking his wrists. "My name is Leora. I'm going to help you." His eyes opened, striking silver blue, exactly like his father's before the red rage took over. They focused on her with desperate hope. "It hurts," he gasped. "My head, something's inside." "I know, don't fight it right now. Just breathe." She carefully moved his hands away from his scalp. His fingers were bloody, nails broken. She could feel his pulse racing beneath her touch. Too fast, too weak. Slowly, carefully, Leora ran her fingers through his hair and froze. There, beneath the thick, tangled strands, her fingertips brushed against something that shouldn't exist. Something sharp, metallic, cold. Aidan whimpered at her touch, but didn't pull away. Leora's breath caught as she parted his hair, revealing what no one else had found. Embedded directly into Prince Aidan's scalp, hidden beneath years of hair growth, were dozens of tiny metallic thorns. They jutted from his skin like grotesque piercings, each one carved with symbols that pulsed with a faint, sickly green light. Her blood turned to ice. She knew these symbols. She knew this curse, and she knew exactly who had placed it. "Your Majesty," Leora breathed, her voice barely audible. "I found something." King Draven leaned closer, his eyes widening in horror as he saw what had been torturing his son for 14 years. The Iron Thorn's curse, and it was killing Prince Aidan slowly, one agonizing day at a time. Dawn broke over Bloodmoor Castle, but no light reached the servants' quarters deep in the eastern wing. Leora sat on her narrow cot, staring at her hands. They hadn't stopped shaking since last night. After she'd revealed the thorns, King Draven had erupted, roaring orders, summoning guards, demanding answers no one could give. She'd been escorted away before she could explain what she knew. What she feared, she knew. "You're alive." Old Marty stood in the doorway clutching a bundle of grey fabric. "I'm honestly surprised." "The prince?" Leora asked immediately, sedated, finally sleeping. Marty stepped inside, her weathered face grim. "But you've created quite the storm, girl. The king wants you reassigned." Leora's stomach dropped. "He's sending me away. Worse." Martia thrusts the grey bundle at her. "Fresh maid's uniforms. He's making you Prince Aidan's personal attendant, exclusive care. No one else is to touch him, feed him, or enter his chambers without your presence." The room seemed to tilt. "What? You heard me. Every other servant who's tried to help that boy has either quit or died in accidents." Marta's fingers sketched quotation marks in the air. 3 months ago, a maid named Elise fell down the tower stairs. 2 weeks later, a physician who examined him ate poison berries from the garden. Berries he'd walked past safely for 20 years. The curse doesn't just hurt the prince. It protects itself. Leora's mouth went dry. "And the king wants me to. You found what no one else could. You touched him and survived the night." Marty's eyes softened slightly. "Maybe you're different, or maybe you're just the next victim. Either way, you report to his chambers within the hour." She left before Leora could respond. Prince Aidan's chambers were nothing like Leora expected. She'd imagined luxury, gold and velvet, treasures and tapestries. Instead, the rooms felt like a beautiful prison, Heavy curtains blocked most of the light. Furniture sat untouched, gathering dust. The bed dominated the space, piled with black pillows and blankets that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. And everywhere were signs of pain. Claw marks on the bedposts, torn pillows, leaking feathers, broken glass swept into corners, bloodstains on the stone floor that someone had tried and failed to scrub away. This wasn't a prince's bedroom. This was a torture chamber. "He's sleeping," came a deep voice. Leora Spoon. King Dreven stood in the shadowed corner, arms crossed. Without the previous night's panic, he looked even more imposing, tall and broad, with a warrior's build and a killer's eyes. But those eyes were fixed on the bed where his son slept, and the expression in them was purely, painfully human. Love, fear, helplessness. "Your Majesty," Leora bowed quickly. "Don't," his voice was rough. "You don't bow to me in this room. In here you answer only to him. Understand?" She nodded. Draven moved closer, studying her face with unnerving intensity. "What's your family name?" Leora's heart skipped. I don't have one, sire. I'm an orphan." "From where?" "A village called Ashfield. It burned 8 years ago." The lie came smoothly. She'd practiced it 100 times. The truth was more complicated, more dangerous. Dreven's eyes narrowed, but he didn't press. "You recognized the curse." It wasn't a question. Leora chose her words carefully. "I've seen similar markings before. In old books, when I was young, a traveling scholar passed through my village and taught some of us to read. Another lie wrapped around a kernel of truth. Those thorns have been in his skull since he was an infant," Draven said quietly. "The night someone tried to assassinate him in his crib. The would-be killer was caught and executed, but not before the curse was placed. 14 years and no one, no witch, no healer, no magic user could find the source of his pain." His jaw clenched. They were hidden in plain sight. Leora looked at Aiden, sleeping fitfully on the bed. Even in sleep, his fingers twitched toward his scalp, seeking to scratch at the invisible torment. "Can they be removed?" she whispered. "That's where you're going to find out." Draven's voice turned hard. "You'll have access to the castle library, including the forbidden sections. You'll have whatever resources you need, but understand this." He stepped closer, looming over her. "If my son dies while in your care, your death will make his suffering look merciful." Leora met his eyes steadily. "If I wanted to harm him, Your Majesty, I would have done so last night when I had the chance. I'm here because no one should suffer like that. Not even a prince." Something flickered across Draven's face. Surprise, perhaps, or a grudging respect. "He trusts you," the king said finally. "When he woke this morning, the first thing he asked was if the kind maid would return. He's never asked for anyone before." Warmth bloomed in Leora's chest, followed immediately by crushing guilt because she did know this curse. She knew exactly where it came from, and if she was right, removing those thorns might kill them both. Aiden woke with a gasp, his hands flying to his head before his eyes even opened. "Easy," Leora said softly, setting down the basin of warm water she'd been preparing. "You're safe." His silver-blue eyes found her confused and wary. In daylight, what little filtered through the curtains. He looked even younger than 14. His face was gaunt, cheekbones too sharp, lips pale. But there was intelligence in those eyes and something else. Loneliness. "You came back," he whispered. "I told you I would help." Leora moved closer, showing him the soft brush in her hand. "Your father said your head hurts worse when your hair gets tangled. May I?" Aiden stared at the brush like it was a weapon. The last maid who tried to brush my hair screamed that I was cursed and ran away crying. "Well, you are cursed," Leora said simply, "but that's not your fault." A surprised laugh escaped him, small, rusty, like he'd forgotten how. "You're strange, so I've been told she waited," letting him decide. After a long moment, Aidan slowly sat up and turned his back to her, his shoulders tense with anticipation of pain. Leora settled behind him on the bed, carefully gathering his long black hair. It fell past his shoulders, matted in places, sticky with old blood near the scalp. She started at the ends, working through knots with gentle patience. "Tell me if I hurt you," she murmured. "You will," Aidan said matter-of-factly. "Everyone does." But as her brush moved through his hair and slow, careful strokes, his shoulders began to relax. Minutes passed. The only sounds were the soft bristles and Aidan's gradually steadying breath. "It doesn't hurt," he said, wonder creeping into his voice. "Not yet." Leora worked higher, approaching his scalp. "But I need to examine the thorns. I'll be as gentle as I can." Aidan's hands gripped his knees. "Okay." She parted his hair section by section, and each time her fingers brushed his scalp, she felt him flinch. But he didn't pull away. The thorns were worse than she'd seen last night. At least 40 of them, maybe more, each no larger than a grain of rice, but driven deep into a skin. The metallic surface gleamed dully, and those runes, those terrible, familiar runes, pulsed with sick light. Leora's throat tightened. She'd hoped she was wrong. She wasn't. "What do they look like?" Aidan asked quietly. "Like someone wanted you to suffer forever." Her voice came out harder than intended. "They succeeded." His laugh was bitter. "Do you know what the worst part is? It's not the pain. It's that everyone's afraid of me. Like I chose this, like I'm some kind of monster." Leora's hand stilled. "You're not a monster. My father has killed thousands. I'm his son. Maybe this is just stop." She moved around to face him, surprising them both. "I've met monsters, real ones. They don't cry when they're in pain. They don't beg their fathers to make it stop. They don't worry about whether their suffering makes them bad people." She held his gaze. "You're just a boy who's been hurt, that's all." Aidan's eyes glistened. For a moment she thought he might cry. Instead, he looked down at his hands. The brush helped. When you were doing it, the pain. It got quieter. Leora's mind raced. The thorns were designed to cause constant agony, to drain life force slowly, but gentle touch seemed to temporarily interrupt their function. "Why can you?" Aidan hesitated. "Can you keep going, please?" She returned to her position behind him, resuming the careful brushing. As the bristles moved across his scalp in soothing patterns, Aidan's entire body seemed to melt with relief. "No one's touched me gently in years," he whispered. "Everyone's either afraid or trying to hurt me to help me. You're the first person who just treats me like I'm normal." Guilt twisted in Leora's stomach like a knife. She wasn't treating him normally. She was gathering information, learning the curse's structure, preparing to make an impossible choice. Because these thorns bore the mark of the Ashen Witch clan, the same clan that had sheltered her after her village burned. The same clan that had taught her to read runes, to recognize dark magic, to survive in a world that wanted her dead. The same clan she'd sworn never to speak of again. Leora Aidan's voice pulled her back. "You got quiet, just concentrating." She worked around a particularly dense cluster of thorns near his crown. "Does it hurt more in certain spots?" "Here." He guided her hand to the base of his skull. "And here his temples, they're spreading. I can feel them growing deeper." Ice flooded Leora's veins. The thorns weren't static. They were alive, burrowing further into his brain over time. In months, maybe weeks, they'd reach something vital. Aidan would die screaming, unless she did something unforgivable. "I need to research," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Your father gave me access to the library. There might be answers in the old text." Aidan turned to look at her, hope and fear wearing in his expression. "You think you can help me?" Leora met his eyes and made a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. "I won't let you die like this. I swear it." The castle library was a cathedral of secrets. Leora had waited until midnight, when even the guards grew drowsy at their posts. The main library was impressive enough. 3 stories of books and scrolls, ladders on rails, stained glass windows that would dazzle in daylight. But she wasn't here for the main collection. She needed the forbidden section. King Draven's seal hung on a black iron door at the rear of the library, a wax impression marked with his personal crest. But beside it, someone had left a key, a test, perhaps, or a desperate father's hope that she'd find what his scholars couldn't. Leora's hand trembled as she unlocked the door. The forbidden library was smaller, colder, no windows. The air tasted of old parchment and something else. Magic, old and angry, preserved between pages. Shelves lined every wall, packed with volumes bound in leather, metal, and materials she didn't want to identify. She lit 3 candles and began searching. An hour passed, then 2 books on curses, hexes, dark rituals. She devoured them all, looking for any mention of iron thorns or embedded runes. Her eyes ached, her back screamed from hunching over ancient texts. Then she found it, a slim volume bound in grey snake skin, no title on the spine. She pulled it free, and dust cascaded like a waterfall. Inside the pages were written in 3 languages, Common, Old Elvish, and Witch script. Witch script, her old teacher's language. Her hands shook as she translated. The Iron Thorns curse, a forbidden technique of the Ashen Witch clan, designed to extract life essence over many years while inflicting maximum suffering. Typically placed on infant targets who cannot resist or report the invasion. The thorns are forged from cursed iron and soul bound to the caster, growing stronger as the victim weakens. Leora's stomach turned. She forced herself to keep reading. Removal requires breaking the soul bond, which can only be done by someone carrying the same magical signature as the caster. Attempting removal without proper countermeasures will result in immediate death of the victim, death of the remover, or both. The book slipped from her fingers, hitting the table with a dull thud. Someone carrying the same magical signature, someone from the Ashen Witch clan, someone like her. "No," Leora whispered to the empty room. "No, no, no." But the pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. The assassination attempt 14 years ago hadn't been just murder. It had been strategic. Plant the curse in the infant prince. Let it slowly kill him while draining his power. And when he finally died, the vampire kingdom would be weakened, vulnerable. The Ashen clan must have planned this for years. And now Leora, one of their own, even if she'd fled, was the only person who could undo it. If she revealed her connection to the clan, Draven would execute her immediately. The same clan that had sheltered her was responsible for his son's suffering. She'd be torn apart before she could explain. But if she said nothing, Aiden would die. She kept reading, desperate for another option. The extraction process must be done in stages. Removing all thorns at once will kill the host instantly. Each thorn removed will trigger a violent magical backlash. The victim will experience agony beyond measure. Many die from the pain alone. Leora's vision blurred. She wiped her eyes angrily. Warning, the curse is designed with a fail-safe. If the caster dies before the curse is complete, the thorns will accelerate their growth, completing their work within days rather than years. Therefore, the caster must be found and kept alive until extraction is complete or the victim is doomed. Her blood turned to ice. The caster, whoever placed this curse on baby Aiden, was still alive somewhere. And if that person died naturally, accidentally, or by execution, Aiden's death would be guaranteed. "What are you doing here?" Leora spun, heart hammering. Aiden stood in the doorway, wrapped in a black robe, his face pale and drawn. He'd followed her. "You should be sleeping," she said, quickly closing the book. "So should you." He moved closer, eyeing the forbidden text spread across the table. "What did you find, Aiden? Don't lie to me." His voice was quiet but firm. "Everyone lies to me. The physicians lie and say they're trying. My father lies and says I'll get better. The servants lie and say they're not afraid." His silver blue eyes pinned her. You promised to help. That means telling me the truth." Leora stared at this boy, this brave, suffering, impossibly strong boy, and made a decision. "Sit down," she said quietly. "This is going to be hard to hear." Aidan sat, and Leora told him everything about the Iron Thorns curse, about the soul bond requirement, about the caster who had to stay alive. She told him most of the truth, but she didn't tell him about herself, about her connection to the Ashen clan, about the fact that she might be his only chance at survival, or his ultimate destruction. When she finished, Aidan was silent for a long moment. "So, someone out there wants me dead," he finally said. "And they've been killing me slowly for my entire life. Yes, and if we find them and they die, I die faster. Yes." Aidan laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "That's brilliant, actually. Evil, but brilliant." Then he looked at her with those two old eyes and asked the question she'd been dreading. "Can you save me?" Leorov met his gaze and spoke the most dangerous truth of all. "I can try." The royal court hall was designed to intimidate. Massive stone pillars rose like ancient trees, supporting a ceiling painted with vampire conquest scenes. Battles won, enemies crushed, kingdoms claimed. At the far end, King Draven sat on his obsidian throne, radiating controlled fury. Leora stood in the shadows behind a pillar where servants belonged. She shouldn't be here at all, but Aidan had insisted. After 4 days of her care, he groaned strong enough to attempt his first public appearance in months. It was a mistake. She could feel it in her bones. "The southern border reports increased bandit activity," announced Lord Corvus, the king's military advisor. "They're organized, well-armed. This isn't random violence." "Then crush them," Draven said coldly. "I don't summon my council to hear about problems. I summon you to present solutions." The dozen nobles assembled in the hall shifted uncomfortably. These were ancient vampires, each centuries old, each powerful enough to level a village. But before their king, they were children being scolded. Aidan sat in a smaller throne beside his father, trying to look composed. But Leora could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers gripped the armrest too tightly. She'd spent the morning carefully brushing his hair, hiding the thorns beneath artful styling. He'd taken 3 different pain tonics just to get out of bed. He was barely holding on. "Your Majesty," spoke Lady Thorne, her voice like silk over steel. "Perhaps we should discuss the succession question. The prince's condition raises concerns about the kingdom's future stability." The temperature in the hall seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Careful," Draven said softly, dangerously. "Very careful with your next words. I mean no disrespect, Your Majesty, but the court has noticed Prince Aidan's absence from public duties. There are rumors. The prince is here now." Draven's eyes blazed red. "He is my heir. That is not a discussion. That is a fact." Aidan's face had gone white. Leora could see his breathing quicken, shallow and panicked. "No," she thought desperately. "Not here. Not now." "Father," Aidan said quietly, "perhaps Lady Thorne has a point. I haven't been reliable. You are my son. You are enough. But I'm not." The words burst from Aidan before he could stop them. "I can barely get through a day without." He stopped. His hand flew to his temple. Leora's heart sank. "Aidan," Draven leaned forward. "I'm fine." But Aidan's voice was strained. The thorns were activating, she realized. The stress, the crowd, the pressure, it was triggering them. Perhaps the prince should rest. Lord Corvus suggested diplomatically, "I said I'm fine." Aidan tried to stand and stumbled. Draven caught him instantly. "Council dismissed now. Your Majesty, we still have—" "Get out!" The nobles fled like shadows, robes billowing, but they weren't fast enough. They saw what happened next. Aidan's legs buckled completely. He collapsed against his father. And then the scream came. That same terrible, inhuman sound Leora had heard her first night. Blood began trickling from his nose. "No, no, no," Aidan gasped, clawing at his hair. "Not here, please, not here." His body convulsed. Draven lowered him to the floor, helpless fury twisting his features. "Someone get the physicians." But Leora was already running. She dropped beside Aidan, ignoring protocol, ignoring the guards who moved to stop her. "Aidan, look at me," she commanded. His eyes were wild with pain, unfocused. More blood dripped from his ears now. The thorns were trying to kill him. She was certain of it. They sensed he was getting stronger under her care, and they were fighting back. The curse was alive. It was learning. "You're stronger than this," Leora said firmly, gripping his hand. "Remember what we practiced. Breathe through it. Can't hurt, father, please." Aidan's back arched, his spine bending at an unnatural angle. Draven's face was a mask of anguish. What's happening to him? The curse is accelerating. Leora met the king's eyes. The thorns are spreading toward his spine. "I saw it this morning when I brushed his hair. We're running out of time. Then remove them." Draven roared. "If I remove them all at once, he dies. And if you don't, he dies anyway." The king's voice cracked. "Look at him." Aidan was seizing now, foam flecking his lips, his eyes rolling back. His fingers bled where he'd torn his own scalp, trying to rip the thorns out. Around them guards whispered prayers. Some made warning signs. To them, the prince wasn't suffering. He was possessed, cursed, damned. Leora made a decision that would change everything. "I can remove one," she said. "Just one experimentally tonight, but not here and not with an audience. If it works, we'll know the others can be extracted. If it doesn't," she didn't finish. Draven stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharp and final. "Save him," the Vampire King commanded, "whatever it costs." Leora looked down at Aidan, still convulsing in his father's arms, and knew the cost would be higher than Draven could imagine, because tonight she would have to use witch magic. And if anyone discovered what she truly was, they'd both burn. The Garden of Remembrance had been forgotten by almost everyone. Tucked behind the castle's eastern wall, overgrown with wild roses and night-blooming jasmine, it was where the royal family once buried their beloved dead. Now it was just a peaceful ruin, crumbling stone benches, a broken fountain, statues worn smooth by centuries of rain. Leora had discovered it on her second day. Now, as she guided Aidan through the tangled paths, she understood why it called to her. It was the only place in the castle that felt alive. "Careful," she murmured, holding back a branch heavy with white flowers. "The thorns are sharp." "I'm familiar with thorns," but Aidan smiled. A real smile, small and genuine, the first she'd seen since the throne room disaster 2 hours ago. He'd been carried back to his chambers unconscious, blood crusted on his face, his body limp as death. The physicians had declared him lost. Even Draven had looked ready to give up, but Aidan had woken at sunset, weak but alive, and his first words were, "I want to see the sky." So here they were, breaking every rule. A cursed prince and a secret witch walking through dead gardens in the moonlight. "The stars are different than I remember," Aidan said softly, tilting his face upward. "Brighter. When was the last time you saw them?" "Years. 3, 4. He sank onto a stone bench, exhausted from the short walk. "I used to sneak out when I was younger before the pain got so bad. I couldn't leave my bed without screaming." Leora sat beside him, maintaining a careful distance. "What were you like before?" Aidan was quiet for a moment, loud, reckless. "I drove my tutors insane, asking questions about everything. I wanted to explore the kingdom, learn sword fighting, study in the great libraries of the South." His voice dropped. "I wanted to be someone who mattered. You do matter. I'm a dying prince who can't even attend his own court sessions without collapsing." The bitterness in his voice was sharp as broken glass. "I heard what Lady Thorne said. She's right. The kingdom needs someone strong." Not this. Stop. Leora turned to face him. You survived 14 years of constant torture. You still think about others, even when you're in agony. You protected those court physicians from your father's wrath, even though they abandoned you. That's not weakness. That's strength most people will never have. Aiden's eyes glistened in the moonlight. You barely know me. I know enough. They sat in silence, listening to nightbirds call and the wind rustle through dead leaves. Finally, Aiden spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. It started the night I was born. Someone broke into the royal nursery. My father told me the story when I was old enough to understand. They found the assassin standing over my crib, chanting. The guards killed him before he could finish whatever spell he was casting. Aiden's hand drifted to his head unconsciously, or so they thought. He finished it, Leora said quietly. The curse was the assassination, just slower. 14 years slow. Aiden laughed without humor. Do you know what the worst part is? Somewhere out there, the person who ordered this is living their life, happy, free. While his voice broke, Leora felt something crack open in her chest. She thought of the Ashen clan, her teachers, the women who'd saved her from the flames. Could they have done this? Could the same hands that taught her to read have planted torture devices in an infant's skull? She didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was carved in magical runes. She recognized. Aiden, she said carefully, what I'm going to do tonight, removing the first thorn, it's going to hurt badly. Maybe worse than anything you felt before. I know you could die. I know that too. He finally looked at her, and his eyes held no fear, only determination. But if we don't try, I'll die anyway. At least this way I'm fighting back. Brave boy, Leora thought. Foolish, brave boy. There's something else, Aiden continued. Something I need to tell you before we do this. He took a shaky breath. I can sense things. Vampire ability. We feel magic, especially magic directed at us. And you? He met her eyes. You're hiding something. I felt it since the moment we met. Leora's blood turned to ice. I don't know what it is, Aiden said quickly, and I don't care. You've shown me more kindness in 4 days than most people have in my entire life. Whatever secret you're carrying, I trust you with mine. He held out his hand. So, I'm asking you directly, Leora. Will you help me? Will you remove the thorns, even knowing it might kill us both? She stared at his outstretched hand. This was the moment. She could refuse, walk away, let someone else figure it out. But looking into those silver blue eyes, she knew she'd already made her choice days ago. Leora took his hand. His skin was cold, his grip weak, but his trust was absolute. Tonight, she promised we remove the first thorn. Together, Aiden smiled, genuinely smiled. And for a heartbeat, Leora could see the boy he should have been, happy, healthy, whole. She would give anything to make that real, even if it cost her everything. The moon tower was abandoned for good reason. 50 years ago, a court mage had attempted forbidden magic here and died screaming, his body consumed by his own spell. Since then, servants whispered that the tower was haunted. No one came here anymore, which made it perfect. Leora had prepared everything in secret. Candles arranged in a circle, a basin of blessed water she'd stolen from the chapel, clean bandages, and a small iron knife she'd heated in her chamber's fire until it glowed red. The knife cooled now on a stone ledge, but it still held enough heat for what she needed. Aiden sat in the center of the candle circle, his hair unbound and falling around his shoulders. He'd refused the sedatives the physicians offered. He wanted to be fully conscious. You're insane, Leora had told him. I want to understand what's been done to me, he'd replied. Now, as midnight approached, she knelt behind him and carefully parted his hair. The thorns gleamed in the candlelight, dozens of metallic points embedded in his scalp. She'd chosen her target carefully, a single thorn near his right temple, slightly separated from the others. If this worked, the isolated position might prevent a chain reaction. If it didn't, they were both dead. Last chance to stop, Leora whispered. Don't you dare! Aiden's voice was steady. He tied a leather strap between his teeth to bite down on. His hands gripped the arms of the chair hard enough to make the wood creak. Leora closed her eyes and let herself remember. The words came back easily. Old witch script taught to her by grandmother Mora in the clan's hidden sanctuary. She'd been 9 years old, learning to identify curse marks, never imagining she'd need to break one. Veronim Cath Day, she whispered. Break the bond, release the life. Her fingers began to glow with pale blue light, her witch mark activating for the first time in 8 years. If anyone saw this, they'd know immediately what she was. She pressed her glowing fingers against the thorn. Aiden's entire body went rigid. The thorn began to heat up, the runes carved into it flaring from sickly green to brilliant white. Leora gritted her teeth and pulled. The scream that tore from Aiden was inhuman. Blood erupted from around the thorn, hot and dark, streaming down his face. His back arched violently, the leather strap falling from his mouth as he shrieked. The sound echoed through the tower, bouncing off stone walls, surely loud enough to wake the dead. "Hold on!" Leora shouted over his screams. The thorn was fighting her, the curse refusing to release its grip. She could feel dark magic crawling up her arms like ice, trying to invade her own body. The curse recognized her as kin. "Join us," it seemed to whisper. "You belong to the Ashen clan. You placed us here, remember?" "I didn't." Leora roared, pulling harder. The thorn shifted just slightly. Blood poured faster. Aiden's eyes rolled back, showing only whites. His fingers clawed at the chair arms, tearing through wood. Vampire strength activated by pure agony, turning him into something wild and dangerous. "Aiden, stay with me." Leora wrapped her other arm around his chest, holding him steady, while she pulled. The blue light from her hands grew brighter, spreading across the thorn like fire-consuming paper. The runes began to crack. The curse screamed, not with sound, but with feeling, a wave of psychic rage that slammed into Leora's mind. Images flooded her vision. A woman in grey robes standing over a crib, chanting in witch script. A baby's cry cut short. Tiny metallic thorns pressed into soft infant skin one by one. While the baby screamed and screamed, "No!" Leora yanked with all her strength. The thorn came free. The release was explosive. Dark energy burst outward in a shockwave that extinguished every candle instantly. Leora was thrown backward, slamming into the stone wall, hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. The thorn in her hand dissolved into black ash, leaving behind only a faint, oily residue. Silence. Then in the darkness, a wet, gasping sound. "Aiden!" Leora scrambled forward blindly, her hands searching. She found him collapsed on the floor, convulsing. Blood soaked his hair, his neck pooling beneath him. "No, no, no!" She pressed her hands against a scalp, trying to stop the bleeding. The wound, where the thorn had been, was deep, angry, still smoking slightly with residual curse magic. But as she held pressure, something miraculous happened. The bleeding slowed, then stopped, and Aiden took a deep, shuddering breath. "Leora," his voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here. I'm right here. It's quiet." Wonder filled his voice. "In my head, that spot where the thorn was. It's quiet for the first time I can remember." Relief flooded through her so powerfully she almost sobbed. "You're okay. You're going to be okay." Then she heard footsteps pounding up the tower stairs. Guards, dozens of them drawn by the screams. Leora looked down at her hands, still faintly glowing blue, with which magic evidence written in light. The door burst open, torchlight flooded the room, and there stood King Draven, flanked by 6 royal guards, staring at his blood-soaked son and the glowing girl cradling his head. Witchcraft! One of the guards breathed, drawing his sword. Leora Draven's eyes, and saw her death written there. The execution square was already being prepared from her cell window, barely a slit in the stone. Leora could see servants setting up the platform, the wooden stake, the bundles of kindling stacked like offerings to an angry god. They were going to burn her at dawn. "Drink this." Leora turned. Old Marta stood at the cell door, holding a cup of water through the bars. Her weathered face was creased with worry, but not fear, not disgust. "You knew," Leora said quietly. "Didn't you?" "I suspected." Marta pushed the cup closer. "Drink, child. Whatever happens, don't let them see you weak." Leora took the water with shaking hands. 3 hours had passed since the guards dragged her from the moon tower. 3 hours of interrogation, accusations, King Draven's cold fury demanding answers she couldn't give without condemning herself further. "Where is Aiden? The prince lives sleeping but alive." Marta's voice softened. "The wound on his head is already healing. Whatever you did, it worked. Small comfort when she'd be ash by sunrise." "Marta, listen to me." Leora gripped the bars. "The other servants who helped Aiden, Elise who fell, the physician who was poisoned, it wasn't accidents. The curse protects itself. It kills anyone who gets too close to discovering it." "I know." Marcia glanced down the corridor, checking for guards. "That's why I volunteered for cleaning duty tonight. The curse thinks I'm just an old woman scrubbing floors. It doesn't see me as a threat." She leaned closer. "But you actually heard it. You removed a thorn. That's why the guards arrived so fast." The curse sounded an alarm. Leora's blood chilled. "Then everyone in the castle is in danger. If the curse knows I'm imprisoned, it might." A scream echoed through the dungeon. Both women froze. Another scream closer. Then running footsteps, shouts of alarm, the clash of steel on stone. "What in the gods' names?" Marcia began. A guard stumbled into view, his face pale with terror. "Walked down the castle. The servants there." He collapsed, a knife protruding from his back. Behind him, a young kitchen maid stood with blood-slicked hands and empty eyes. "Marcia, run!" Leora shouted, but 3 more servants appeared, moving with jerky, unnatural precision. Their eyes glowed with the same sickly green as the curse runes. They weren't human anymore, they were puppets. The curse had found a new way to protect itself. Marta ran surprisingly fast for her age. The possessed servants pursued her like hounds, their movements too quick, too coordinated. Leora rattled her cell door uselessly, watching in horror. Then a roar shook the dungeon. King Draven appeared like vengeance incarnate. Moving faster than thought, he caught the nearest possessed servant by the throat and slammed them against the wall. The impact should have killed instantly, but the servant just smiled with those glowing green eyes. The witch must burn. It hissed in a voice that wasn't its own. More possessed servants poured into the corridor. 10, 15, 20. Half the castle staff, all moving as one. "Your Majesty," a captain of the guard appeared, sword drawn. "The servants have gone mad. They're killing anyone who approaches the witch's cell." "It's the curse," Leora screamed. "It's using them. It knows I can remove the thorns, so it's trying to kill me before I can save Aiden." Draven's eyes snapped to her, blazing red with vampire fury and something else, understanding. "Guard this door," he commanded. "No one touches the witch until I return." He vanished in a blur of movement, heading deeper into the castle toward Aiden's chambers. The possessed servants turned as one to face Leora's cell. They pressed forward, a wall of bodies with knives and broken glass, their faces twisted into identical smiles. "Burn the witch! Protect the prince's suffering!" The guards formed a line, but they were already backing away. You couldn't fight your friends, your colleagues, people you'd shared meals with just hours ago. One guard's sword hand trembled. "I can't. That's my brother." His brother lunged with a shard of mirror, aiming for his throat. Blood sprayed. The corridor descended into chaos. Screams, steel on flesh. The possessed had no fear, no hesitation. They died and kept coming, climbing over the fallen bodies of their own. Leora pressed herself against the back of her cell, helpless. This was her fault. She'd heard the curse, and now innocent people were dying because of it. Enough. The voice cut through the carnage like a blade. Prince Aidan stood at the corridor entrance, swaying on his feet, still in his blood-stained nightclo. His father stood beside him, supporting him. The possessed servants froze. Aidan stepped forward, his silver-blue eyes fierce despite his weakness. "I am Prince Aidan of House Bloodmore, and I command you, stop." The servants' green eyes flickered, their bodies shook, fighting the curse control. "You are my people," Aidan continued, his voice stronger now. "And I will not let this curse use you. I will not let it kill you to protect itself. You are more valuable than my pain, more important than my life." One by one, the possessed servants collapsed unconscious. The green light faded from their eyes. The curse had retreated. Aidan turned to face his father and spoke words that changed everything. "Free her. The witch is the only one who can save me. And if saving me means accepting help from someone you fear," he looked at Leora with absolute trust, "then that's what a true king would do." Draven stared at his son for a long moment. Then he drew the cell key from his belt. The war room smelled of old leather and older blood. Leora stood before King Draven's desk, still wearing her torn, blood-stained clothes from the dungeon. The cell key had freed her body, but not her fate. Around the maps of the kingdom covered the walls, territories, borders, enemy positions marked in red ink like wounds. Aidan sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm room. He had insisted on being present, though he could barely keep his eyes open. The extraction had drained him more than he'd admit, explained. Draven's voice was cold iron. Everything. No more half-truths. Leora took a breath. This was it. The moment where her secrets would either save her or condemn her. "My name is Leora Ashfeld. 8 years ago, my village was attacked by raiders. My family died in the fire's truth. I was found by travelers who took me to a sanctuary in the northern mountains. Partial truth. They taught me to read, to recognize magical symbols, to survive dangerous truth. What sanctuary? Here it was. The edge of a knife, a settlement of healers and scholars. They kept to themselves, studied old magic. Not quite a lie, but not the whole story either. Draven's eyes narrowed. "You're protecting someone. I'm protecting a child who lost everything," Leora said firmly. "Those people saved my life, but they disbanded years ago. I don't know where any of them are now." That part was true. After she'd fled, she'd never tried to find them again. Yet you knew how to break a curse created by the Ashen Witch clan. Draven leaned forward. "A curse so specific, so rare that my scholars never even identified it. How? Because I study their techniques." Leora met his gaze. "The people who sheltered me had books, forbidden books. They believed knowledge shouldn't be destroyed just because it was dangerous. It should be understood, controlled." She gestured to Aidan. "And now that knowledge is the only thing keeping your son alive. Silence stretched like a bowstring. You used witch magic in my castle," Draven said quietly. "Dangerously, I used healing magic to remove a torture device from a child's skull. You hid what you were because people like you kill people like me on sight." The words exploded from Leora before she could stop them. "You think I don't know what happens to witches in vampire territory? You think I haven't seen the execution purrs? I hid because I wanted to live. And yet you risked everything for my son because he deserved better than slow death." Leora's voice cracked. "Because no one else would help him. Because—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "Because why?" Draven pressed. Because I know what it's like to suffer for something you didn't choose, she whispered. To be punished for what you are instead of who you are, and I couldn't watch it happen to someone else, not when I could stop it. Aiden's soft voice broke the tension. Father, she saved my life. She also endangered it by using forbidden magic in an unstable environment. The curse endangered it. Aiden struggled to his feet, the blanket falling away. The curse has been killing me since I was a baby, and none of your physicians or scholars or precious safe magic could even find it. She found it in one night. She removed a thorn that's been torturing me for 14 years, and you want to punish her for that. I want to protect you by killing the only person who can help me. Aiden's laugh was bitter. That's not protection, Father. That's fear. The Vampire King's face twisted with something raw. I have already lost your mother. I will not lose you too. Leora's breath caught. No one had mentioned a queen. The grief in Draven's voice was ancient, a wound that never healed. Then let Leora finish what she started, Aiden said quietly. Let her remove the rest of the thorns. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it might kill me, but doing nothing definitely will. Draven stood, his massive frame suddenly looking exhausted. He walked to the window, staring out at the dark kingdom beyond. 3 nights, he said finally. You have 3 nights to remove as many thorns as safely possible. I'll provide whatever resources you need. Protected workspace, guards, supplies. He turned to face Leora, and his eyes held no warmth, only calculation. But understand this, which if my son dies, you die slowly, painfully, in ways that will make his curse look merciful. Your Majesty, Aiden protested. Those are my terms. Draven's voice was absolute. Accept them or die now. Choose. Leora thought of the thorns spreading toward Aiden's spine, the curse accelerating, the caster, whoever they were, still alive somewhere, still connected to the magic that was killing him. 3 nights wasn't enough time, but it was all she had. I accept, Leora said. On one condition, Draven's eyebrow rose. You dare negotiate? I need information. She moved to the war map on the wall, pointing to the Northern Territories, the Ashen Witch clan. What do you know about them? Where are they now? Who leads them? Why? Because whoever placed this curse is still alive. The book said, if the caster dies, the curse accelerates and completes within days. She looked at Draven. We need to find them and keep them alive until every thorn is removed. Otherwise, Aiden dies, no matter what I do. Draven's expression darkened. The Ashen clan camps near the border of the Blackwood Forest. They've been unusually active lately. My scouts report troop movements. Leora's blood ran cold. How many? 500 witches. Maybe more. Draven's finger traced a line on the map. They're marching toward our border. They'll reach it in 9 days. 9 days, 3 nights to remove the thorns, 6 days before an army of witches arrived, and Leora still didn't know who had cursed Aiden or why. Then we have no time to waste, she said, turning to Aiden. Rest tonight. Tomorrow night we remove 3 more thorns. 3? Aiden's eyes widened. You said, I know what I said, but we don't have the luxury of caution anymore. She met his gaze. Can you handle it? Aiden straightened, despite his exhaustion. Yes. Draven looked between them. This witch girl and his dying son, bound by trust he didn't understand. 3 nights, he repeated. Make them count. The border watchtower stood like a broken tooth against the grey dawn sky. Captain Vex lowered his spyglass, his face grim. Your Majesty, you need to see this. King Draven took the glass and peered north toward the Blackwood Forest. What he saw made his blood, already cold, turn to ice. The Ashen Witch clan wasn't marching anymore. They were preparing for siege. Hundreds of grey tents dotted the landscape like grave markers. Campfires burned in precise formations, ritual circles. Draven realized the magic. And in the center of it all, a massive pavilion flew a banner. He recognized a silver tree on black cloth. The mark of the Coven Mother. They're 3 days ahead of schedule, Biex said quietly. They forced march through the night. Whatever they want it badly. Draven's jaw clenched. Send word to the capital. Full military mobilization. I want every vampire soldier armed and ready within 2 days. That will leave the southern border exposed. I don't care. If the Ashen clan breaks through here, there won't be a southern border to protect. He handed back the spyglass. Double the watch. I want to know if a single leaf crosses that border. As Vex hurried away, Draven stared at the distant army. 500 witches, maybe more, hidden by illusion magic. Each one trained in combat spells, cursecraft, death magic. And somewhere among them, the person who had tortured his son for 14 years. The person Leora said they needed to keep alive. It made him want to burn the entire forest to ash. Back at the castle, Leora was studying the thorn she'd removed, or what remained of it. The ash had reformed slightly overnight, taking on a crystalline structure. Under candlelight, she could see tiny runes still pulsing within it, though their power was fading. Fascinating, isn't it? Leora jumped. An elderly woman stood in the doorway of her new workshop, a converted storage room Draven had cleared for her research. The woman wore scholar's robes and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd forgotten more than most people learned. I'm sorry. Who? Magistra Yenna, royal historian and very bored archivist. The old woman shuffled closer, eyeing the thorn ash with interest. I heard we had a real curse breaker in the castle. Thought I'd introduce myself before you get yourself killed. That's encouraging. I'm old. I don't waste time on encouragement. Yenna produced a magnifying lens and peered at the ash. Iron Thorn's curse. Haven't seen one of these in 40 years. Nasty work. The Ashen clan used to specialize in them during the Witch Wars. Leora's heart raced. You know about the Ashen clan, child. I've lived through 3 wars and 2 plagues. I know about everyone. Yana straightened her sharp eyes, fixing on Leora. I also know you're connected to them somehow. Don't bother denying it. No one recognizes Ashen curse work unless they've been taught by them. Leora's mouth went dry. Relax. I'm not going to tell the king. Yenna waved dismissively. Draven's many things, but he's not stupid. He knows you're the only chance his son has. Your secrets are safe as long as you're useful. She paused. After that, well, I'd suggest having an escape plan. I'm not going to abandon Aiden, even if it means dying with him. Leora met the old woman's gaze steadily. Yes. Yenna studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Good, because what you're attempting is likely impossible, and you'll need that kind of foolish dedication to even have a chance. You're really not good at encouragement. No, but I'm excellent at research. Yenna pulled a thick book from her robes. How it fit there? Leora couldn't guess. I've been digging through the restricted archives. Found something interesting about the night Prince Aiden was cursed. She opened the book to a page marked with red ribbon, a report written in hasty script. The assassin was caught in the nursery chanting over the prince's crib. Identity unknown. Face scarred beyond recognition. Carried no identification. Spoke only one phrase before execution. The debt must be paid in blood, and years refused to name who sent them. Died laughing. The debt must be paid, Leora repeated. What debt? That's the question, isn't it? Yenna flipped to another page. I cross-referenced every conflict between House Bloodmore and the Ashen clan for the past century, found dozens of skirmishes, 3 major battles, countless minor grievances, but nothing that would justify cursing an infant. Unless it wasn't about Aiden specifically, Leora said slowly. What if the curse was meant for Draven? Punishment through his child's suffering. Possible. But there's another option. Yenna's finger traced a line in the report. What if the Ashen clan believes House Bloodmore has something that belongs to them, something worth waging war over? The pieces clicked together in Leora's mind with horrible clarity. The assassination wasn't about killing Aiden, she breathed. It was about creating leverage, plant the curse, let it slowly drain his power, and then demand its return in exchange for the cure. Yenna finished, except something went wrong. The assassin died before delivering the demands. The clan waited for the prince to die naturally, but he didn't. He survived far longer than they expected because he's stronger than they anticipated. Leora looked at the thorn ash with new understanding. The curse was designed for a normal vampire child, but Aiden has his father's bloodline. Ancient, powerful. He's been fighting the curse every day, slowing its progress through sheer will. And now the clan is getting desperate. Yenna's voice was grave. They're marching to war, not to attack, but to reclaim whatever they think we have before Prince Aiden dies and their leverage disappears. A knock at the door made them both turn. A messenger, pale-faced and breathless. The king requests your presence immediately, both of you. They found Draven in the war room standing over a map with his generals. His face was stone. The Ashen clan sent an envoy, he said without preamble, under flag of truce. They're demanding an audience. What do they want? Leora asked. Draven's eyes were cold fire. They want the Hearthstone of Ashimor, an artifact my grandfather supposedly stole from them 60 years ago during a raid. He slammed his fist on the table. An artifact that doesn't exist, that we've never had. Then why? Because they don't believe us. They think we're hiding it, and they've given us 6 days to produce it, or they'll consider Prince Aiden's continued suffering as an act of war. Silence felt like a hammer. They know about the curse, Leora whispered. They know Aiden is dying. More than that, Draven's voice was bitter. They're using him as a hostage. Give them the artifact they claim we have, or they'll ensure the curse kills him before we can remove it. Yenna stepped forward. What did you tell them? That we'll consider their terms. Draven turned to Leora, and in his eyes she saw father's desperate rage. You have 6 days, witch. Remove those thorns and save my son. Because if he dies, I'm going to burn that entire clan to the ground, whether they started this war or not. Rain lashed the ruined chapel like punishment from angry gods. Leora had chosen this place for its isolation, half a mile beyond the castle walls, forgotten by everyone except ghosts. The roof had collapsed decades ago, leaving the interior open to the storming sky. Lightning split the darkness, illuminating crumbling stone arches and a moss-covered altar, perfect for forbidden magic. Far enough that if something went catastrophically wrong, the castle itself might survive. Are you sure about this? Aiden had to shout over the thunder. Rain plastered his hair to his face, already mixing with blood from the fresh wounds on his scalp. Over the past 5 nights, Leora had removed 17 thorns, 17 sessions of screaming agony, magical backlash, and desperate healing. Aiden had survived each one through sheer stubborn will, but 23 thorns remained, and they'd grown. The curse knew it was dying. The remaining thorns had burrowed deeper, spreading root-like tendrils toward Aiden's spine and brainstem. Removing them one by one would take too long. The tendrils would reach something vital before they finished. Tonight, they had to remove them all at once. Tonight, one or both of them would probably die. I'm sure, Leora said, though her hands shook as she arranged the final ritual components, black candles that wouldn't blow out in the wind, a circle of salt mixed with silver powder. Ancient texts, written in 3 languages held down by stones. And in the center of it all, Aiden knelt on the wet stone floor, shirtless, his back covered in the intricate runes Leora had spent hours painting. Counter-curse symbols, binding magic, every protection spell she could remember from her childhood training. It wouldn't be enough. She knew that, but she had to try. If this doesn't work, Aiden began. It will work, Leora. He caught her wrist, his grip weak but insistent. If I don't survive, I need you to promise me something. Don't promise me you'll run. Before my father's grief turns to rage before the Ashen clan attacks, just disappear live. His silver blue eyes were fierce in the lightning flash. You've given me more kindness in 2 weeks than I had in 14 years. That's enough. That's more than enough. Leora knelt before him, taking his face in her hands. You listen to me, Aidan Bloodmore. You are not dying tonight. You're going to survive this, and then you're going to be the king this broken kingdom needs. A king who leads with compassion instead of fear, who remembers what suffering feels like and protects others from it. Her voice broke, so don't you dare give up. He smiled, tired, genuine, heartbreakingly young. You have more faith in me than I do. Then borrow mine. Thunder crashed directly overhead, shaking the ruins. The storm was reaching its peak. Midnight approached, the threshold hour when magic ran strongest. It's time, Leora said. Aidan moved to the center of the circle and lay face down on the altar stone. His hands gripped the edges, knuckles white. Every muscle in his body was tense. Leora began the incantation. The words came from deep memory, from lessons taught by Grandmother Mora in camel rooms while other children slept. Words of unbinding, of severance, of breaking bonds that should never have been forged. Her hands began to glow, brighter than ever before, blue light intense enough to rival the lightning. She pressed them to Aidan's scalp, fingers finding the clusters of thorns, and pulled. Aidan's scream tore through the storm. All 23 thorns resisted at once, the curse fighting with everything it had. Dark magic exploded outward in waves, slamming into Leora's protective circle. The salt line held barely, crackling with conflicting energies. Blood poured from Aidan's head, soaking the altar, running in rivulets across ancient stone. His body convulsed, back arching impossibly high. The runes Leora had painted on his skin began to glow, absorbing some of the curse's backlash. But not enough. The curse lashed out, seeking revenge. Dark tendrils of magic wrapped around Leora's arms, trying to invade her body, to stop her heart, to punish her for this betrayal. Because the curse did recognize her. It knew her magical signature. It remembered the hands that had taught her, the same hands that might have crafted this torture. You are one of us, the curse whispered in her mind. You cannot destroy your own blood's work without paying the price. Watch me, Leora roared. She snelled every scrap of magic she possessed into her hands, burning through her own life force if necessary. The blue light turned white-hot. The thorns began to crack, their runes shattering one by one. Aidan was barely conscious now, his screams reduced to whimpers. Blood ran from his nose, his ears, his eyes. He was dying. Leora made a choice. She opened herself to the curse completely, dropping her defenses. The dark magic rushed in like a flood, seeking her heart. But instead of killing her, she trapped it, pulling it into herself, absorbing the curse's malevolent energy. The pain was indescribable. Every nerve in her body ignited. She felt the curse trying to embed itself in her own skull to create new thorns to start the cycle again. But she didn't let go of Aidan. With a final surge of power, the last thorn came free. The release was cataclysmic. Energy exploded outward, shattering what remained of the chapel's walls. The protective circle burned away to nothing. Both Aidan and Leora were thrown backward by the shockwave. Leora hit the ground hard, her vision going black. She could feel the curse still writhing inside her, poisoning her blood, trying to kill her from within. Worth it, she thought, as consciousness slipped away. He's free. The last thing she heard was Aidan screaming her name. Then nothing. Dawn broke over the ruins. Aidan woke slowly, every muscle aching. He was lying in mud and rainwater, the storm having passed. His head felt strange, empty. Quiet, the pain was gone, completely gone. He sat up, gasping, hands flying to his scalp. His fingers found healing wounds, 23 small holes already beginning to close. But no thorns, no curse metal, no magical torture devices, just skin, just scars, just freedom. Leora. His voice was, she lay a few feet away, perfectly still. Her skin was grey, her lips blue, not breathing. No, no, no. Aidan crawled to her, pressing his ear to her chest, a heartbeat faint, irregular, but there she'd absorbed the curse to save him. It was killing her now, just as it had killed him slowly for 14 years. "I won't let you die for me," Aidan whispered. Power stirred within him. His vampire abilities no longer suppressed by the curse. They'd been growing all along, trapped behind the thorns. Now they were free, and they were enormous. Aidan bit his wrist, letting his blood, royal vampire blood, ancient and powerful, drip into Leora's mouth. "Live," he commanded, and magic resonated in his voice. Live. The throne room had never seen anything like this. Prince Aidan stood before the assembled court, and every vampire in the hall could feel the difference. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, raw, untamed, magnificent. His silver blue eyes practically glowed. His presence commanded attention without a word spoken. The curse hadn't just been removed. It had been restraining something far greater. "Impossible," Lord Corvus whispered. "No 14-year-old should possess that kind of power." King Draven stood beside his throne, arms crossed, watching his son with an expression caught between pride and wonder. The curse didn't just torture him. It was feeding on his power, suppressing his growth. 14 years of accumulated strength released all at once. In Aidan's arms, Leora stirred. She'd been unconscious for 2 days. The curse she'd absorbed had nearly killed her, would have killed anyone else. But Aidan's blood had saved her, purging the dark magic while healing the damage it caused. Now she woke to find herself being carried into the throne room like some kind of treasure. "Aidan!" Her voice was barely a whisper. "What?" "Shoo. Rest." He looked down at her with such fierce protectiveness that something in her chest cracked open. "I've got you, Your Majesty." A messenger burst through the doors, breathless and pale. The Ashen Clan, their army, every guard drew their weapons. Draven's eyes flashed red. "Have they crossed the border?" "No. See, they've stopped. The entire army just stopped marching. Their war banners are being lowered." Silence fell like snow. Majestra Yenna shuffled forward, understanding dawning on her weathered face. The curse. They felt a break. "Explain," Draven commanded. "Soulbound magic works both ways, Your Majesty. When the curse was destroyed, the caster would have felt it. They'd know immediately that their leverage is gone." Yenna's eyes gleamed. The Ashen Clan was never coming for war. They were coming to negotiate, but now there's nothing to negotiate for. Aidan carefully set Leora in a chair, his father's smaller throne, which drew gasps from the court, and turned to face the messenger. "Is there an envoy?" "Yes, my prince. A single witch under flag of truce. She's requesting an audience with you specifically." Aidan's jaw clenched. "Let her in. My son," Draven began. "If they wanted to harm me, they could have done it any time in the last 14 years. Aidan's voice was steady, commanding. "I want to look into the eyes of the person who tortured me and ask them why." The doors opened. A woman entered, flanked by nervous guards. She was ancient, perhaps the oldest person Leora had ever seen. Her face was a map of wrinkles, her hair white as bone, but her eyes were sharp as broken glass, and she moved with the careful precision of someone who'd survived countless dangers. She wore grey robes, marked with a silver tree symbol. The Coven Mother herself, Leora's breath caught. She knew this woman, Grandmother Mora, the witch who'd saved her from the flames, who taught her to read, to recognize curses, to survive. The woman who might have ordered an infant prince tortured. Mora's eyes found Leora, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, relief, guilt. "Grandmother," Leora whispered. Every head in the room turned to stare at her. "You know her?" Draven's voice was deadly quiet. Before Leora could answer, Mora spoke. Her voice was rough with age, but clear with purpose. "I came to confess," she said simply, "and to beg forgiveness for a crime I did not commit but failed to prevent." "You cursed my son," Draven growled. "No, but one of my clan did against my orders, Against everything we stand for, Mora's hands trembled with age or emotion. Leora couldn't tell. 14 years ago, a witch named Kessa lost her daughter in a vampire raid. Your raid, King Draven. Your soldiers burned her village, searching for the Hearthstone, an artifact we'd hidden from you because it was sacred to us, not stolen. Draven's face went stone. Kessa went mad with grief, Mora continued. She swore revenge. We thought she'd let it go, but she sneaked into your castle, cursed your infant son, and returned before we knew what she'd done. By the time we discovered it, she'd already been executed by your guards. The curse was activated, spreading with no way to communicate with you, no way to undo it without risking the prince's life. So, you did nothing. Aiden's voice cut like a blade. We did everything we could. We searched for a cure for years. But Ironthorn's curses can only be broken by someone with our magical signature, someone we trained. Mora's eyes returned to Leora. When I heard a girl from our old sanctuary was working in your castle, I prayed she'd find what we could not. I prayed she'd have the courage to do what needed to be done. Tears streamed down Leora's face. You knew I was here. I've been watching over you since you fled, child, protecting you from a distance, hoping you'd find purpose. Morris smiled sadly. I never imagined it would be this. This doesn't absolve you, Draven said coldly. Your witch still cursed my son, and my daughter saved him. Mora's voice cracked with surprising strength. Leora risked everything, her life, her secrets, her future, to undo the damage. The debt is paid. King Draven in blood and courage and love. Aiden stepped forward. The Hearthstone. Do you still want it? We want peace, Mora said simply. The Hearthstone was never worth a child's suffering. Nothing is less. Leave it buried with the past. Aiden looked at his father. End this. The cycle of revenge, of raids and curses and war. End it now. For a long moment, Draven said nothing. Then slowly he knelt. The entire court gasped. The vampire king knelt before his 14-year-old son and bowed his head. You are wiser than I ever was, Draven said quietly. The kingdom is yours when you're ready. And when that day comes, you'll be the king I never could be. Aiden helped his father stand, then turned to Mora. Tell your clan the war is over. No more raids, no more revenge. We start fresh. Mora bowed deeply. You have my word, young king. As she turned to leave, Leora called out, Grandmother Mora, thank you for saving me, for teaching me, for everything. The old witch's smile was warm as summer sun. Thank you, child, for saving yourself. That was always the hardest part. Then she was gone. That night, Leora found Aiden in the Garden of Remembrance, sitting on their bench beneath the stars. Couldn't sleep? She asked. Don't need to. The curse kept me exhausted. Now I feel like I could stay awake for days. He looked at her, his expression soft. How are you feeling? Like I absorbed a curse and almost died. She sat beside him. So normal. He laughed, genuine and unrestrained, the sound of a boy who'd forgotten how to be young, finally remembering. What happens now? Leora asked. Now we rebuild the kingdom ourselves, everything. Aiden took her hand. And you stay as my advisor, my friend, my family. If you want to, Leora squeezed his fingers. Where else would I go? They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars will overhead. Two broken people made whole by courage and sacrifice and trust. In the distance, the Ashen clan's army began its march home. And in Bloodmoor Castle, for the first time in 14 years, hope bloomed like flowers in a forgotten garden. The curse was broken, the war was over, and the future, bright and terrifying and beautiful, was finally theirs to choose. The end,